All right, so chapter 43. The attack that everybody has been preparing for. The Gauls for the offensive, the Romans for the defensive, is going to begin Septimo Die. By would because of from in on the seventh day. On the seventh day of the attack, Abbot of Epsom, with the greatest wind having arisen. This is from the deponent verb orior, oriri, ortus sum, with just a cone on the front of it. So, with the greatest wind having arisen, perfect passive looking participle, they, began, queperunt, to throw ferventes glandes, heated, boiling hot bullets out of soft clay. And so they essentially take little pieces of clay, mold them into a bullet, cook them like in a kiln to harden them up, and then put them in fire to really get them hot. So this is what they're throwing into the camps. And the purpose is that where they land, they're so hot they'll catch stuff on fire. So again, with the greatest wind having arisen, they began to throw bullets, glandes, burning hot, fervent bullets from soft clay. And they began to throw them fundis, with slings, and they began to throw javelins, having been made hot, so they heat up the javelins in the fire as well. And they began to throw that stuff in casas, onto the huts. That's where we get the Spanish word casa, as in house. Huts, which tego, tegere, texi, tectus, to cover, which had been covered with straw in the Gallic custom. So they wait for a really windy day, and what they're going to do is they're not throwing this stuff in order to kill or harm the Romans. They're throwing to catch stuff on fire, and they know that it will, and it's going to be effective for two reasons. One, just like the Gauls put all kinds of straw on their roofs in order to be able to keep the rain out and whatnot. That's what's available, so the Romans have done that in their camps as well, in the Gallic custom. And it's an incredibly windy day, so that when one catches on fire, it will spread. Kind of like the Great London Fire, which was the second one in 1943. The Germans bombed London, not with bombs to kill and destroy buildings. They bombed it by firebombing it, dropping incendiary devices to try and let the city catch on fire. And that's exactly what these Gauls are doing to the Roman camps. These, referring to the huts, quickly comprehended fire. What does that mean? They quickly caught fire. And the winds, with its magnitude, with its size, ablative of description, in its size, the winds brought that fire into every location of the camps. And so again, they've got these bullets, heating, burning hot, made from softened clay, and they've got these heated up javelins. And they began to throw that stuff onto the houses which had been covered with straw in the Gallic custom. Caught fire, and the wind is going to let it go all over the place. Moving on to the next slide. And so, this is then the day of the attack itself. The enemies, the hostes, with a very loud shout, just like Sicuti, with victory having been birthed, having been brought about, and having been obtained, explorata, those enemies, they began to drive their towers. So they start to move their towers in. They probably put them on wheels. And their tortoise shells. So to drive both of those, and they began to climb the wall with ladders. A scala is a ladder. And so the Romans would have seen them coming rolling in. Again, those towers, so that they'll be able to hit the level of the wall at the same height. And those tortoise shells are like sheds that the Romans get inside, but it has no floor. And instead, like a Flintstone car that they'll pull aside. I think that there are pictures in your book that you'll be able to see. But so great a virtue, and this presence of mind there was. But there was so great a virtue of the soldiers, and this presence of mind, that as a result, this is a note clause, as we see the degree word, when they, the Roman soldiers, who have that such great virtue, and such presence of mind, remember that is-a-id, when it modifies something, is the equivalency of a hic-hac-hoc-or-a-lel-a-lud, that when, on all sides, ubique, they were toasted by flame, they were scorched by flame, and when they were pressed by the greatest multitude of weapons, and when they understood, so here the cum is being governed by torrentur or torrerentur, tremerentur, and intelligerent, all imperfect subjunctives. When they understood that all their own baggage and all their own fortunes, conflagrare, were up in flames, were going up in flames, were burning, and this is a zeugma, because literally all of their junk is burning because of, obviously, the fire that is being sent in by the enemies. And figuratively, their fortunes are on fire. And so again, when one is taken literally, the other is taken figuratively, that is a zeugma, both yoked together by the intelligerent. They understood. Not only, non modo, did no one leave from the wall for the sake of migrating away. So in other words, they knew what was happening behind in the camp, but they stood tall. Not only did nobody go, oh, my junk's on fire. None of them. No one left from the wall for the sake of running away. Not only that, but almost not even, nequita means not even, almost not even anybody looked back. So in the movies, cool guys never look back at explosions. That's what these Romans are. They ain't even looking back at their huts and other elements to see if it is on fire. And then all fought, pugnare, imperfect subjunctive, most sharply and most bravely. So in this moment of the greatest attack, the Romans' fortunes, they're on fire, but they have the virtue and the presence of mind. This day was the most serious, longly, for our guys. Cicero, or Caesar, is telling us that this day is the one that it was the closest call. But nevertheless, said Tamen, but however, it did have this outcome. Venio venire, to come, and a out of. So an outcome. It's a noun that you make from the fourth principal part of the fourth conjugation, or fourth declension, I should say. So, it did have this outcome, that on that day, is say id, but it modifies something, is the same thing as a lelalud or hikok. The greatest numbers of enemies, so the greatest number of enemies, genitive plural, were wounded and were killed. That they had packed together, stipo stipare, we have seen this word before, it's what the bees did to the cells of honey, that they had packed together themselves under the wall itself, and the ultimi, the guys in the back, the farthest guys, were not giving a recess, an escape, to the first guys. What this is meaning is that all of the soldiers of the Gauls had rushed to the wall so fervently that the guys up at the front are all pinned up together, and they're being crushed in a melee, kind of like you sometimes see this footage of Black Friday right after Thanksgiving, And all these people are crushed trying to get into the store to get like a $40 TV or whatever it is that they're trying to get on the doorbusters. It's called a doorbuster for a reason. People will bust down the door. And that's what these Gauls are doing, these Nervii. Indeed, with the flame having been paused a little bit, and with the tower having been driven to a certain location, and with the tower not only having been driven, and with the tower touching the wall, the centurions of the third cohort, they removed their own guys, all their own guys. Well, first and foremost, before they removed their own guys, the centurions of the third cohort, they recessed, they went back from the place where they were standing, ex eo loco quo stabant, from this place where they were standing, in which they were standing. So they departed, they went back from this place where they were standing, and they removed all of their own guys, and they began to call the enemies, mock them, taunt them, with a nod, like, you know, come on and bring it, we're ready for you, and with voices, if they would want to go in. So essentially what these centurions are going to do is that in the moment of the height of the attack and the siege, they began to taunt the Gauls on the outside. Like, why don't you come on in here? We'll give you a reception. We've got the hospitality for you. They're probably pointing to their spears and their sword, or their swords. It's right here. And nobody of them, of whom nobody of whom dared. This verb, audeo, second principal part, audere, third principal part, ausis sum. It is a semi-deponent verb in that, in the green tenses, it will have only active forms and translate actively. But in the brown tenses, perfect, pluperfect, and future perfect, it has only passive forms, but still translates actively. That's why it's semi-deponent. It is only deponent for the perfect, pluperfect, and future perfect forms. So, nobody of whom dared to proceed, to go in. So, it is, at this moment, the centurions not only are showing bravery, they are outright taunting and mocking the enemies. And then, from every part, with stones having been thrown, having been disturbed, so it's they. They as in the Gauls, the enemies. So let's redo it. Then, having been disturbed from all part, from every part, with stones having been thrown, and the tower, sucense est, from kendo kendere, it was set on fire. And so it really, this attack fizzles out. It is not successful. And in this next chapter, we then are going to see, obviously, the heroic events leading up to two individuals being named in chapter 44.